I lived in Ridgely's Delight, so literally across the street from the stadium site. And my best recollection was that at first it was just, something's supposed to be happening. Let's try to reach out and get involved in the process. And that before too long had me, opposing.
We moved here. We moved here from Connecticut. We knew very little about Baltimore. We found this house and we liked it. It was big. It was just what we were looking for. And I even remember asking the realtor as we went past Camden Station and the warehouse, which was pretty run down. I said, "Is there any development plans for that?" And he kind of said, "I'm sure they'll do something."
And then let me tell the rest of the story just about, so we went to our first community meeting and we bought a house in this neighborhood called Ridgely's Delight. So we went to this community meeting and they were talking about this stadium that's in Camden Yards. And the way they were talking, we were like, where the heck is Camden Yards? Because it sounds really close. We live in Ridgely's. What are we talking about? And lo and behold, we found out it was literally at the end of the street. And so that's how we found out. And we panicked, I would say. I mean, like most of the neighbors, the fear of the unknown. And we just thought about all the negatives of a stadium. The parking, the noise, the traffic. Would you say?
As you can imagine, everybody was pretty scared at the time. I heard very little talk about the positives. It was, oh my God, this is going to be hell. You're not going to be able to park. People are going to be peeing on the front of your house. The games are going to go late.
I thought you would have to have a schedule of the games in your car so you would know when to not come home if the game was starting or ending, like those kinds of things. This ugly stadium, it was before they had figured out the plans that it looks as nice as it does now. So the worst fear was just like this concrete bowl with parking all the way around it, right?
The initial renderings were pretty ugly. There was a guy at the meeting that approached us afterwards, and his name was Bill Marker, who you've interviewed, and he said, join my, I don't know what he called it at the time, committee or whatever, and I did some artwork for him, and then he got us involved.
Don't remember exactly how I first started reaching out and meeting people. We within, I just happened to look by the end of '86, we had formed a corporation, Marylanders for Sports Saturday Inc., and it just seemed like there were more important things to spend money on, and other ways to deal with it, and we just so that's how. And I don't remember. I've long been involved in activism and stuff, but part of it was, I guess, that I was right there in Ridgely's Delight, right next to it. The question is this a good investment? You're spending the money, is it a good investment? Is it the best way to accomplish what you're trying to do there? And even as it is, even if it's the best way to try to do about the stadium, and I don't think it was. There are other things that we could have done. But even if it's a good investment, what else could you do with that money if you got X amount of public dollars? Even though is this the way you should spend it? Should we spend it on schools? Should we spend it on transportation? Should we feed people? All those sort of things. So, I'm proud when I look back at the Art of the Corporation that we had that two-part. Is this the best way to do that? What are their major arguments? There was the implicit threat that the team would leave, which, and of course they'll say, but they never said they were going to, but they never were going to sign a long-term contract either or anything. And there was a shortage of women's restrooms at Memorial Stadium. I figure for $200 million could have built a few ladies' rooms. And I forget one of the things, but that was one of the things. And there was this, oh my God, Edward Bennett Williams, when he comes up from Washington, it takes him a half hour or whatever to get from the harbor up to 33rd Street. But yeah, we went to court trying to remember what the state constitution and what there was the right that it was the right to take things to referendum, and in what I called to being a rather tortured opinion by the Court of Appeals, they said no, because money was involved, you didn't have the right to take it. I assumed that if I sat down now and would still agree that that was a very tortured opinion. I have the recollection that frequently, the pro side was the front page of the paper. We were deeply buried. I have a very strong memory of, and so that whether that was Presbyterian Affair, there were all the big names, all the whatever. The one major event was, I think it was one hearing in Annapolis for both the Senate and the House and stuff like that. And I remember going there and being prepared to be, I was working, Senator Jack Lapidus was the leading senator in opposition. And we were waiting, and you would think that we would have had a chance to say something, and we did. But I think it was at least 4 hours into the hearing. Edward Bennett Williams and whoever else, and Mayor Burns and stuff. So instead of, okay, one side speak for an hour and then the other side speak for an hour, it was, and with Edward Bennett Williams, I remember that at least one or two of the people, the legislators, had been law students of his or whatever, and they, wanted to talk about that and everything. So it's hard to overcome that, and that certainly, but that was at least a kink in the system that the opponents at the hearing were put back to, we had a chance to be heard, but how many of the legislators, how much of the media, how much of anybody was still in that room when we got a chance to be heard?
Sharon, at the time, we were transferred to New York, and she was doing freelance work for People magazine, and they did a issue. It was 9 for the 90s.
Yeah, it was some futuristic,
Of what
things to look, people to look for, places to look for, just what was up and coming.
And it featured Kurt Schmoke, but it also, and it had a piece on this ballpark that was being built.
I'm the one that suggested it in the editorial meeting. There was an article in the New York Times that helped a lot. Right before there was this, it was an architect review on the New York Times, and gave it good high marks. And so I mentioned that to the editors of People, and they actually did a one-page. Again, it was just the renderings; it hadn't happened, but that made the cut of new and different, and it turned out to be right, because then after Camden Yards, many of the baseball fields looked a lot like Camden Yards for many years.
And so the people that were really opposed, a lot of them had moved, which seems funny now. I think there was excitement building, and the day the stadium opened, if you dig up the Baltimore Sun, on the front page there's an article, and Sharon is quoted as saying, I don't know squat about baseball, but I'm going to learn. And we didn't know anything about baseball, but we bought season's tickets that year.
We did buy season's tickets with some neighbors.
We've kept those tickets the entire time it's been open, and our group has grown, and there's somewhere between 25 or 30 of us, mostly from the neighborhood now. There was an exhibition game before it opened, and we went to that.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Did we? Okay, cool.
Which was actually the first game played there, but it was just an exhibition game.
It wasn't a problem, the traffic. I don't know whether it's because Russell Street has, 3 lanes each way, and people were going. It seemed to empty out pretty well where there wasn't. We were able to get into the neighborhood without trouble. And there was people walking on the streets. I mean, still, I think more now they come this way, but
It's a pleasant crowd.
yeah, it's mostly a pleasant crowd. And it's nice to have life on the street versus just, an empty, dark street. So that turned out all right.
You know, in the first few years, almost every game, if not every game, was a sellout. So for the longest time, you'd just get mobs of people walking through, but it was never a problem. It was always a pleasant crowd. You could go out, sit on the stoop, and say how'd the game go, get the score. Being this close, like the night that Eddie Murray hit his 500th home run, we were getting ready for bed. We had the windows open, and you could hear the roar, and I said, that's it, he hit his 500th home run, because they were expecting it, And so we ran out the door, we ran up, and it was late. I think they'd gone extra innings, so there was not that many people there. We went right up to the first row, and we watched the ceremony, and I realized I had not put shoes on. And you can go almost anywhere in the country, and they say, well, where are you from? And you say, I live a block from Camden Yards, and they know exactly what you're talking about. Opening day here is a big holiday.
Oh, yeah.
Every year we have Christmas, New Year's, and opening day. Those are the.
And anybody that moves new into the neighborhood, we tell them, mark it on your calendar and make sure you take that day off, or at least you can work a half a day, but you've got to be back by, noon or whatever.
We were here, I was saying that the president came in, the helicopter landed in Carroll Park, and then the motorcade came up Washington Boulevard. Bill Marker, after fighting the stadium, didn't want to be here that day. So he was out of state, but he had left his car on Washington Boulevard. So he didn't get the notice that they were towing. And so I found a tow truck driver who for $10 moved his car around the corner. And he just recently found out that I did that. It's natural to go not in my backyard. It's natural to oppose the unknown. When I look back, it opens my eyes, and when they talk about some other big project, I go, that doesn't sound good, but let me look into it.
It's definitely got a positive vibe through the city. And it's really nice for us because we walk all over the place. And so, we see the people coming in, especially when the Orioles started to win over the past couple of years. We could see the amount of people coming from everywhere. We'd be walking to the harbor on a day we didn't have tickets, and there would just be throngs of people walking from, like East Baltimore, I don't know where, like beyond the stadium here, and from Lexington Market down and Pigtown over. So it's just, it just adds a lot of life, and we hope, the restaurants and everybody does well from having more people here.
Some people, of course, it's a reason to be here because you can walk over and do that and be involved. And there's occasion we did, who was it last year? Was it Springsteen was performing at the stadium? And we walked over we didn't go to them, but went over to to listen a little bit from outside. I think we were at the Brooks Robertson statue. I remember living in 497, still living in Ridgely's. The Pope was at the stadium, and so it was just so loud. I heard the Pope because just the sound system coming all the way through and stuff. So it's kind of. I'm very glad I don't live in dull, boring suburbia, so I'm not saying that but this thing should be out in the burbs. It's nice to have investment in the city, but it should be better investment.
And if they could just win a World Series, it would change it even
more. Oh my God, we hope we're still alive for that.